We're going to move to the joint meeting of the Glendale City, welcome to the joint meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Redevelopment Agency of October 25th, 2011. Can we have a roll call for the council, please?
Council members Mnuchin.
Here.
Jarian.
Here.
Caro.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Friedman.
Here.
Roll call for redevelopment agency.
Agency members Friedman.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Caro.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Chairman Mnuchin.
Here.
May we hear your report, please?
Agenda for the October 25th, 2011 joint public meeting of the City Council and the Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, October 20th, 2011 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. Can we hear staff report? Who are we going to?
Yes, to Mark Berry, Senior Project Manager. Mark?
The item, Mr. City Manager and Madam Mayor, is public hearing Director of Community Development regarding Americana brand expansion. At A is council motion approving stage 1 and 2 design review subject to comments and conditions, and B is ordinance for introduction approving statutory development agreement.
Now to Mark Berry, Senior Project Manager. Mark?
Mayor Friedman, Chairman Mnuchin, members of the council and agency. The project site is just over 1 acre and is located on the northeast corner of Orange and Colorado Streets. It is surrounded on 3 sides by the Americana and is currently occupied by the Golden Key Hotel and a single-story vacant brick building. In May, the council approved a series of general plan and zoning amendments to change the zoning of the site to town center specific plan. And in June, the council approved the conditional vacation of Orange Street between Colorado and Crusoe Avenue. A majority of the vacated street area will either be incorporated into the project as building area or as a pedestrian paseo. The Americana Expansion Project is being presented today for design review approval and for consideration of a development agreement. The proposed project is a 122,000 square feet expansion of the Americana brand for the relocation of the Nordstrom department store currently located in the Galleria. The proposed building is a relatively straightforward 3-story box, approximately 60 feet in height, that has a mixture of colors and materials that complement the Americana project. To provide some context for the building height, if you're standing on the south side of the project along Colorado, it roughly splits the difference in height between the condo building on the east and the movie theater building on the west. The primary entrance will be on the north facing Crusoe Avenue and the Americana Green. The project will incorporate the existing guest store located in the first floor of the condo building. This will provide additional frontage for Nordstrom along Crusoe Avenue and will also house their espresso bar. The adjacent sidewalk and street area will be redesigned for outdoor dining and seating. Another key feature of the project is the proposed pedestrian paseo between the Nordstrom, Barnes & Noble, and movie theater buildings that would connect the Americana Green with Colorado Street. The paseo will be lined with planters, displays, overhead banners, and other improvements. And in addition, the facade of the brick building currently on the site would be incorporated into the Nordstrom facade along the paseo. The design submission has been reviewed by the Planning Design Studio. They believe the project is consistent with the design standards and architecture of the Americana project, and they are recommending approval without conditions. In addition to design review, the applicant is requesting a development agreement to lock in the current park and library impact fee per the council direction on July 19th. Under the terms of the DA, the applicant would waive the right to request a fee refund and would have to submit for foundation-only permits by the end of the year in exchange for locking in the current fee rate. If they do not submit for plan check by the end of the year, the fee increase would apply. Also, if they allow plan check or building permits to expire, the developer will be required to pay new plan check and building fees and the new park fee. The development agreement only contains the terms needed to implement the fee structure. It does not vest any project zoning or other regulations which are typical of a development agreement, and staff is recommending its approval. An addendum to the Town Center EIR was prepared for the project. The addendum supports the findings that the expansion of the Americana will not result in any new or significant environmental impacts or substantially increase the severity of impacts that were identified by the EIR. Finally, I'd like to note a correction to the physical impact section of the staff's report. The report states the project value is $13.3 million. That estimate was only for the building value and didn't account for the value of land. When adjusted to take into account the land, staff would expect the tax increment and housing set aside to be considerably higher. That concludes staff's short presentation. If there's any questions, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Rick Caruso, President and CEO of Caruso Affiliated.
I'm going to open the public hearing. Come on up. I'm opening the public hearing.
Okay.
Welcome, Mr. Caruso.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. To say the least, I'm pleased to be here with our newest addition to the Americana at brand Nordstrom. This will be a brand new, first-class store operated by a truly great retailer who has had a long history in the city of Glendale. And it will be one of their newest stores constructed on the West Coast in a few years. As you know, this project represents a substantial new investment by our two companies in the city of Glendale and a continued vote of confidence by us and Nordstrom in the city's ongoing growth. This is a spectacular new addition to a great city. I'd like to thank everyone present who has provided input and helped bring this effort to a point where we can present this project today. I will let Nordstrom and their architects take you through the design specifics, but I wanted to mention one or two important concepts. We have worked together to make the building successful in form and function, including creating an attractive presence on Colorado Boulevard, establishing a new pedestrian entrance to the Americana via the Paseo on what was formerly Orange Street, and by decorating that Paseo with landscaping, graphics, signage, and the preserved brick facade of the 230 South Orange building. Finally, we have extended the pedestrian zone within the Americana farther east on Caruso Avenue, and we believe that this additional plaza will benefit everyone, including visitors, residents, and our retailers. Here today is Mr. Preston Plaxco, who will present the Nordstrom design to you, unless you have any questions for me. All right, thank you.
Mayor Friedman, council members, my name is Preston Plaxco. I'm with Nordstrom Store Planning. I'd like to thank you for your time tonight. I am here to help introduce you to our store that we plan to build at the Americana, as Rick said. We've obviously had a store here for many years in the Galleria 2. And on a quick personal note, I actually was involved in the original construction of that store. I was the project architect at a firm then called the Callison Partnership. And I took that store from schematic design through construction and grand opening, and that was 30 years ago. So it's interesting for me to be here in front of you recommending that we replace that store with a new facility. But we're really excited for the opportunity that Caruso has come to us with, and look forward to providing a much better customer experience for us. This store will be much more efficient for us, allow us to highlight our merchandise and our new department concepts. It'll be a much more energy efficient store and a superior facility to what we have right now at the Galleria. The site has been a little bit difficult to work with. It's pretty tight, and we've had to think out of the box on a lot of issues, which has actually created some opportunities for us. We will have a large exterior dining area for our cafe, which will be up on the third floor. We may not have been able to sort out the best way to do that, or really allotted the space to do that had we not been limited on how far our facade could push north on that third floor. We'll have an oversized espresso bar because we'll be taking the existing guest retail space, so we'll have some inside seating there as well as outside seating. And we'll have a valet entrance, which is very important for us in this market. So that'll be another kind of an amenity that we look forward to providing to our customers. It'll be a very unique program for us due to the site constraints, due to the pretty tight size of the store. But we really feel that we can help energize that side of the Americana and drive more business and serve our customers better in the future from this facility. I'd also like to thank staff for
the last 6 or 7 months of working with us, being patient with us as we worked through a variety of site-related issues, and also got a lot of input from them on architectural style and solving some site constraints that I think the store is really much stronger for having gone through that experience with staff, so kudos to them for their time as well. At this time, I'd like to introduce Carolyn Jones. Carolyn is a principal with Callison, the architect of record. She's been involved in this project since the very first stages, and she will take us through a PowerPoint presentation and get more into the architectural concept of the outside of the building.
Yeah, we are getting there.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Jones, again with Callison Architecture. Thank you again to Mayor Friedman and the council for letting us come present our new store to you tonight. We are very, very excited about bringing it here, and I'm pleased to walk you through the manifestation of what Mr. Caruso and Mr. Plaxco have sort of outlined regarding the store. As mentioned, it's a very unique store for Nordstrom, not only in the planning and functionality of it due to the site constraints, but also in the architectural design expression that we have created. As you're familiar with many of the stores, I'm sure, in the Southern California region, this one is pretty unique in that regard. It is reflective of a number of the design changes and progressions we've been making in a few of our more recent Nordstrom stores throughout the country. But we're really excited about this one, as we feel like a lot of those moves have come together and been synthesized in this store that we really see carrying forward to our designs, again, in many other stores. And again, I do want to mention our partnership really with Caruso and staff has been wonderful on this and really helped bring this to a place I think that we're all very, very pleased with. Of course, you're very familiar with the site along Colorado and Brand. Again, this kind of expresses the tight constraints we were working with, and one of the big design challenges that came out of that were the two very different public facades that we had to work with. The very large one expressed on Colorado and a much, much smaller one within the Americana itself. As the infill piece, really, to this missing piece of the puzzle at Americana, we're excited how we can blend in and make the transition between, especially on Colorado, the theater building and the condominiums. Working with that, obviously one of our big challenges, just glancing, of course, the context photos of the site, the theater, currently Orange Street, and looking at the condominium, and then there's the condominium on the Americana side. Finding an architecture and a style that really let Nordstrom express their own identity, but really synthesized, complemented, integrated with the distinct styles and the eclectic and organic nature of the Americana itself. Well, it was a definite challenge for us, but it's exciting to be able to sort of blend into that environment and still feel like we made a good statement for Nordstrom and for the city. So back to our elevation on Colorado. Again, this is obviously significant presence and face to the city for us here. We put a lot of emphasis on the corner element right here at our show window, a 90-degree show window, which is rather unique for Nordstrom to do, but it was very critical for us to activate the pedestrian entry at the Paseo, which will be connecting Colorado to the Americana, and bring a lot of life, light, and color to the street at that area. Our materials on the building here are a terracotta panel type system, both here and at the vertical element, 2 different colors and 2 different scales of panels, the rest of it being a stucco-based, scored, architectural, more neutral backdrop. The entire length of Colorado as a pedestrian zone was also very important to us. We tried to bring the scale of that down with our horizontal projecting elements, creating a shadow line. The lower sign there, again, really drawing people to that Paseo entrance. And with landscaping as well that complemented both the architecture and bringing the scale down at the pedestrian level. It's a view of the same elevation, looking a little more west. A couple more of the design elements here. There's not very many spaces within a Nordstrom store that programmatically lend themselves to windows, but we were able to arrange planning to get those here, expressing a nice horizontal element, contrasted with our vertical element here, which will be a spandrel glass element that's exteriorly lit. And then our projecting sign also will be an internally lit, glowing blade-type sign. I think this also shows well the kind of pedestrian streetscape we wanted to help create by bringing the scale down with our small projecting eyebrow, as we call it, and sconces, other features down there at the pedestrian level, and again, the planting. On this part of the site, we were able to achieve both planting at the curb level, similar to the theater, and then against the building to really soften and enhance that experience. Fast forward to the valet entrance that Preston mentioned on the alley, and between the Americano and Colorado. It's a very important feature and amenity both for the Nordstrom store and the Americana in general. We tried to really reflect the other entry within the store, both in the materials of the terracotta panels used here, the features, the sconces, our plaques, planters, and stuff like that, to really make this an intimate and high-class experience for those arriving to the center through here. Then forwarding over to the other side of the Americana, this is a view from the parking entrance across the fountain in green. So you can see really here the real challenge between making the transition from the very large condo building, the very significant Barnes & Noble building, and trying to find a presence for a very narrow facade for Nordstrom, still making that draw across the plaza. So it was very important for us to get the tower sign here, which we worked on. It'll be connected to that same sign on Colorado. It's an internally lit glowing sign that we hope will really make Nordstrom's presence known, even though the facade itself is much more minimal. So closer view then as you get to Caruso Avenue. Again, our blade sign, we've angled it again to really make that draw from across the plaza. Obviously, with very little storefront to work with and facade width, we wanted to use an all-glass storefront here to really bring a lot of light and life right there at the pedestrian level, obviously draw people into the store and create a lot of action right there within the center as well. Adjacent, as mentioned, is our espresso bar here, which is going into that guest space that's currently in the condominium building. What we'll be doing there is really wanted the condo buildings to still remain very whole and intact, not look like that first floor got somehow absorbed into the adjacent Nordstrom store. What we'll be doing is recladding it with a similar terracotta panel material, which again, like Colorado, we're using most of the feature elements here. So it takes on a little bit of a subtle connection, but still lets the condo building express its architecture and the curved facade that it currently has today. So we're excited about that. There'll be obviously more action on the streetscape with additional seating for the coffee bar, bringing more of that life out into the plaza. And also, as mentioned, up here we had the opportunity to arrange planning to put our cafe on this side of the building at the third floor. And up there we'll be able to create a terrace, which will be not only an amenity for diners to be able to look out and enjoy the plaza and the fountains, but also really activate more action and interest from looking down on looking up at it from the plaza level. And with that, I will turn it back over to Mr. Caruso to talk about the entrance to the Paseo and our coordinated efforts with making that a wonderful space.
I just want to carry on some design issues. The next couple slides are the Paseo. I know the Paseo is an important component, making the connection to Colorado. I also have a vested interest in that since we have a property on the other side of Colorado, which we just improved. So we plan on making a significant effort on making that connection, which I think will be very spectacular, and then also celebrating the history in conjunction with the Historical Society of Glendale along the Paseo there, and the addition of the facade of the building on Orange. So we think that's also going to be very interesting and a fun walk. I do want to also say very sincerely, this has been a complicated project, complicated because of the site, because of the land acquisition. The land acquisition almost seems like 1,000 years ago that we were trying to buy the hotel and the old warehouse building, the vacation of the street. The staff of your city has been spectacular to work with. That doesn't mean that they've been pushovers, but that does mean that they have been creative in finding solutions for us to be able to move forward in a meaningful way. And that's unusual in all the cities that we work with. So it's obviously a very important project for us. We think it's important for the city. And we do think it's, in this age of a recession, the fact that probably the premier retailer in the country is making a huge investment in Glendale, and I think that speaks to the philosophy of the city. But I do want to express my thanks to everybody on the staff who has been exceptional to work with, from your city manager all the way down to all the people who have processed the plans and the concepts that we've shown you today. So with that, we're open to any questions that you may have, and we're eager to get started on our work at the first of the year.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing and go to questions or comments from council. Mr. Weaver.
Oh, you can sit down, Rick. I don't know who to ask these to. I didn't get briefed on this, so
Okay.
I'll ask my questions here instead. No particular order. The crosswalk from Colorado, would that be lit, LED lit? I mean, that's a heavy traffic street. We have the crosswalk, so, Mr. Mitchell, LED lit, a flashing yellow, or what? That's a mid-block.
Mayor Spanner of the Council. The traffic signal that operates the the crosswalk today will remain in effect.
Oh, it's
so
gonna
the
stay?
head crossing will be
It'll be a
head
crossing.
actuated and it will be signalized.
Okay. And the entrance into the valet, will there be a signage on Colorado indicating where the valet into Nordstrom's is?
I haven't seen any, is this on?
On.
I haven't seen requests for that, but we could do something comparable that had been done on Brand.
Because
to
you're
the valet.
driving down Colorado and you don't know the area,
Exactly.
sign saying valet would help.
Something comparable to what was done on Brand at Crusoe Avenue would be possible.
It might be in here and I missed it. How about traffic circulation off of Brand going on to Crusoe Avenue? You have the valet there. And then you can turn down, I guess, down by Nordstrom's where another valet is. I'm trying to understand what the traffic flow is in that area.
Yeah, that makes two of us. The issue is what I understand, like, as you know today, that the valet service for the Americana operates totally on Crusoe Avenue. The drop-off is when you first get in before the north-south alley. The pickup is beyond that. With Orange Street being closed, then essentially the westerly half of Crusoe Avenue will also be closed. So the drop-off won't change, but the pickup will then occur on eastbound Crusoe Avenue. So when the vehicles are retrieved from the underground parking, they'll come out, and instead of making the right turn like they do today, they'll make a left, go eastbound on Crusoe Avenue, and then go over to Brand and exit on the signal.
So all the traffic will be northbound on the east side of Nordstrom's into the valet if they want to
I'm
stop.
talking about the existing, how the existing would
Oh, they'll
change.
go down and have to do
Right, they'd go in, and essentially you come in westbound and you'll go out eastbound, go to and
Right.
from Brand. And as far as Nordstrom's would use the same garage to park for their valet as what's used for the rest of the Americana. And the inbound, and I haven't seen this, but they could do it, presumably there would be entry coming in just from Colorado for inbound, so that you drop your car off, valet continues northbound in the alley, goes into the underground parking, then when the car is retrieved, it just comes back out southbound, then they would exit back to
There'll be
Colorado
two-way traffic
in the alley.
in the
correct.
alley and up with two valet stations.
Correct.
One for Nordstrom and one for the rest of the Americana.
That's correct.
Okay, let's see. Okay, that was the only ones I had on the traffic. By the way, I did notice it looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger got, in the rendering on page A7, it sure looks like him. Very good. Try to sneak that one in, huh, Rick? Take a look at that. The other, I'm trying to understand, I've looked at it over and over. Condominiums, first two on the corner, level 2 and level 3, have bedrooms on the side facing west. It looks like the second floor, your building's coming right up to the windows of the first condominium on the corner there. What's going to happen there? They're not going to have any view looking out those windows, are they? I'm trying to find the separation. And then of course, you have that eating place 2 stories up. So, now right above the Nordstroms, you have You have the brown area, and I'm trying to figure what the separation there.
Yeah, there's a light well on the first level unit. There's a light well there. So what we have done, to give you an update on the condominiums, all the condominiums have sold, which is great news, except for the corner stack that you see there. One has sold. We're keeping the balance of them for now because we think they're such terrific units with such great views that we don't want to rush to sell them. That also gives us the flexibility to deal with construction at this point. But there's going to be a light well, so there'll still be light that comes in there, but it will get modified a bit.
Because if I was in corner one on 2 or 3 and looking out to the west, I'd be looking at the roof of one of them, and I'd be hearing...
It's going to be nice, though. It's going to be a really nice
I'm sure.
roof.
I'm just asking. I know you got it all figured out, but I just wondered what I would see if I was on those 2 levels.
Yeah. Well, if we sell it to you, we'll have you look at whatever you'd like. We'll decorate the roof if you'd like to buy it.
Can we get a pay raise?
No, but it's going to, listen, it's obviously in my best interest to protect the view line and the integrity of that
That's
space.
the only thing I'd
so.
say to look at. Same with the noise on the 3rd. It'll probably be muffled depending on what vegetation you plant on the east side of that outdoor area.
Listen, I think everybody's pretty excited about having a Nordstrom next to him, so I don't think it's going to be an issue.
It's your place.
Okay.
You have to discount the value of those 2 units.
Oh, I think they're going to increase in value.
Okay.
With Nordstrom next to them.
Yeah, I think that was all the concern I had.
Okay.
Can't wait to see you go in with it.
Mr. Quintero.
Okay, well, let me start by saying I'm very pleased. I think the architectural team did a great job of addressing Colorado and the corner element. It's great. Just a beautiful building on Colorado. So I'm very, very happy to see that. My question, I guess, is to the staff, and that has to do with loading and unloading, I would suppose mostly unloading on Colorado. I see the loading docks for Nordstrom's, so that won't be much of an issue. Trucks being able to come into the alley and unload on off of the
Which alley? Which alley?
the current alley, not Orange, but the current alley has a loading dock for Nordstrom's.
Okay.
But my question is, I see something here that says truck loading area, and then there's sort of instead of a wide sidewalk, you've got a narrow sidewalk on Colorado. So if the traffic engineer's around or someone to answer that question.
Mr. Quintero, as you mentioned, the north-south alley provides access to the loading berths for the Nordstrom store itself. On Colorado, there's a proposal for a recessed truck zone, and that'll be a widening of the street by 11 feet. It'll extend a little over 100 feet to the east of the Orange Street intersection. And what that is serving is its replacement loading that now occurs on Orange Street that's, of course, going to be vacated. On the west side of Orange Street, immediately south of Crusoe Avenue, there is a loading zone there that accommodates commercial vehicles from 7 in the morning until noon. The rest of the time, it's 3-minute for passenger loading and unloading. It's very heavily utilized. There are times when it goes beyond the number of spaces that are allocated. There's about 66 feet of loading zone there. So with the elimination of that, the question really becomes, if you don't provide a replacement place for it, where's that going to occur? It's very critical loading for the bookstore, for some of the uses through there. When our staff first met with the Crusoe people, I guess in January, to discuss this, my first question was, where's that going to be accommodated? There aren't a lot of options, quite frankly. You can do some in the alley, but the alley is starting to get pretty busy when you've got the Nordstrom's valet in through there. You've already got the truck openings to go into the Nordstrom garage. The other option was seen as in what's going to be kind of the downplayed part of Crusoe Avenue that's west of the north-south alley. I don't think Americana people were too enthused about trying to have truck loading occur in that area. You've got the trolley that goes through there. Trying to get trucks to maneuver in and out of that area was going to get somewhat problematic. So it really came down to where can it go, and as you know, there is on-street loading permitted now in the morning hours on Brand, on Central, and then on Orange, as I've said. So it's not a new precedent. It's just in a location where we didn't want it to occur. If it had to occur on street, not to block a through travel lane, but instead to recess it, and that's the design that they're proposing right now. They're replacing it essentially foot for foot of what was provided on Orange and now would be on Colorado Street instead.
So the loading's going to be on Colorado?
Again, yes, not for the Nordstrom store, but it's, I'll call it replacement loading for what now occurs on Orange Street.
What's the difference in sidewalk width from the adjacent property and the Nordstrom's property? And is the building, I'm having trouble finding the site map, but is the Nordstrom's building recessed then? Is the whole thing pushed back because of that loading dock?
One
or does
lane.
it stay flush with the next building?
It's one lane
Should bring up.
wider. Again, a traffic lane to the west.
Mayor Friedman, members of the council, to answer the question regarding the sidewalks and the alignment of the building, the south facade of Nordstrom facing Colorado will essentially be in the same line as the existing cinema building and the condo building, so it sort of maintains that line. The sidewalk is essentially the same width. It's approximately 11 feet, except for where that loading dock or that kind of loading pocket will occur. In that location, the sidewalk gets reduced down to 6 feet.
How wide is it?
It's 11 feet except where that loading pocket is, and then it's about 6 feet.
6 feet for the loading.
6, yeah.
So the sidewalk is 6 feet?
The sidewalk is 6 feet, yes. Otherwise, the sidewalk and landscaping is a total of about 11 feet, which is consistent across all of
There are no
Colorado.
other options in terms of loading other than on-street loading? That's the only option they have for us?
And just remind me, because what's the total length of the building, the elevation on Colorado, and what's the size of the loading dock area?
I believe the total elevation is approximately 140 feet, plus or minus.
And the
going
loading
up
dock
memory.
is 60 feet?
That's 70 feet, 69 is the way it's dimensioned.
A little further clarification. On the wide part of the sidewalk, if you take out the landscaping, how wide is the actual pedestrian area of the sidewalk, would you guess? You're probably about 6 feet, 6, 7 feet?
Maybe about 8 feet.
Okay. So in terms of real travel lane, you're looking at maybe going from 8 at the pedestrian area down to maybe 6, because you've got the landscaping that's taking up the parkway and the trees, so that's probably taking up 3.5 feet along that area.
Well, look, I don't have a problem with a sort of parking situation where shoppers can be dropped off to go to Nordstrom's or the rest of the Americana in Colorado. As a matter of fact, I think that's kind of a good idea. But the idea that you're going to have trucks in the morning on this main artery in and out of the 5, you're going to be unloading trucks there. As a matter of fact, once the merchandise, Barnes & Noble books, later on, that's a big building. We know the kind of issues Barnes & Noble has. That might be some other store in the future, but at any rate, once the merchandise is unloaded, what are you going to do then? You're going to drive through, the sidewalk. You can't go out on Colorado between 7 and 12. That's people are going to the freeway. I mean, I think this should be off of the alley. That's the place to put it. Nordstrom's is doing their unloading and loading off of the alley, and I think Barnes & Noble building and anyone else should do the same thing, not have it on Colorado. Aesthetically, it's not that big a deal. I think that building looks great, and so it's not about the looks and how it would affect the building. It's just about the traffic flow Then the idea, I have a question, by the way. The idea that we're loading and unloading on other streets, we've allowed that for new projects, or is that sort of grandfathered in?
That really occurred with the Americana. It doesn't happen that often, not as formally as this was done. It was permitted there because, again, even though they have their big loading dock on the north end of the project, they really didn't have that availability toward the south end. And again, so we didn't block through travel lanes. Where it's done now is where right turn lanes are introduced. It's the southbound right turn lane on Brand that you turn into Americana Way. On Central, it's the northbound right turn lane into Americana Way. And in those locations, it's from 6 to 11 in the morning, and it's right at the start of the right turn lane. No one's turning into the development that early in the morning, so it hasn't been really a problem. Orange Street's been much the same way. But no, in answer to your question, this has really been something that's come more for this particular project, and we've learned a lot about how well it works and how well it does not work at times.
I'd like to have my question answered, actually. Were there any other alternatives considered, or are there any alternatives?
Not that I'm aware. When I had discussions with them in January, we talked about this very thing, and I think they were exploring other ones, and I haven't seen anything since, so I would assume that whatever they did explore wasn't as satisfactory as this. Perhaps Mr. Crusoe could have a thought on that, or...
Did they mention once the merchandise is off the trucks, and I assume you can do bobtail semis, et cetera, what do you do then? Do you go up on the sidewalk to deliver the merchandise, or how do you?
Well, there's the old saying, you can always tell a Teamster, you can't tell him much. So I'm not sure. I mean, when they do unload and just watching how they do it there, how they do it up in front of the Fashion Center through there, it's... merchandise is usually rolled off and rolled in as quickly as they can. And I think that's one concern they had. The further they get from these stores, the more difficult it becomes, because if they get out of a vision of sight, and that might have had something to do with not wanting to do it in the alley. Although if you're on Colorado Street, you still can't see very far up that Paseo. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do that.
I think the answer is they're going to truck it down the sidewalk into what was previously the loading area of the building.
Right.
They don't have much of any way to get it in.
Then you're going to have curb cuts on the sidewalk.
Yeah, they'll have to be able to go from across the walkway to get into the theater building in Barnes & Noble.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Paseo presumably would be of a surface that you could roll a cart as opposed to something that's more textured that would go through
I might
there.
note that you see this all the time, for example, at the Fashion Center over here, which is a project built in the last 13 years.
Right.
Some of the major stores have loading bays in the back, but a lot of the frontage stores, they're all off of Glendale Boulevard. There was a semi parked in the right-hand turn travel lane just this morning as I came in, and they're offloading and they're putting them on. In their case, it was a relatively small little pallet kind of mover that the guy was loading a pallet and taking it into all the frontage stores that are along the front of that shopping center. Because there's no way to get into the rear of those buildings and unload. So they're doing it in this very fashion.
Did you notice that truck was facing northbound?
It was facing northbound.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty weird, but...
Right.
I don't know. If there are no alternatives, I guess that's what we have to live for. Were there any other alternatives, Mr. Crusoe?
We really explored everything.
Couldn't be.
We really explored everything. The main user of that is Barnes & Noble, and their deliveries are very limited and early in the morning. And as you said, Jim, it's going to go down the sidewalk. It's what they do today. They park on Orange. It goes up the sidewalk and into their store. It's a very much an urban environment.
I just wondered, with the Nordstroms, where they have their loading and unloading, is that something that possibly could be a joint shared at times, that if Nordstrom trucks aren't dropping off?
My understanding, Councilman Weaver, from a security standpoint, they only want their own trucks in and out of there.
Well, then you'll have the
I think
issue
it's
that they're going to have to hand take it even farther to get into Barnes & Noble.
I know, but
I'm not talking about the actual loading dock. I don't think Nordstrom should be required to share with anyone.
It was just a
But
thought.
I'm talking about that alley. I mean, that alley seems to me that should be the location to unload merchandise, whether it's Barnes & Noble or a successor store someday.
Which alley? The one,
Well, these are the architectural drawing, they're not the design plans. When you
Right.
start
I
finalizing
think
it, you'll
the-
take care of it.
go all the way around here?
I think the practical reality, a lot of what happens today is that early in the morning, delivery trucks are parking on Caruso, and they're offloading on Caruso to the front of the stores. I suspect that, I know for a fact Barnes & Noble does a lot of that already. I suspect they'll continue to do that because it's a direct shot to their front door. So I don't see this being used very much, but it is a location that we've been able to get Barnes & Noble to agree to because they're a party to this. And I know it may not be a perfect solution, but I would certainly ask for the approval so we don't have to go back through another round of approvals through other retailers.
So right now, there is loading and unloading on Caruso. I keep saying loading and unloading because I assume some merchandise goes out that
Well,
hasn't been
also-
sold.
It happens on Caruso every morning
Yeah.
for all the stores on Caruso. None of those stores have loading docks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the turnout is wide enough for a semi to park in there without interfering with traffic?
Yes, it is. It's about 65 feet. Now, if there's another
Wide,
vehicle,
not the length, the width.
well, the width is 11 feet, so it's definitely wide enough. If I had to say one thing, but if I'd mentioned that today on Orange, Mr. Quintero, you had mentioned about drop-off of passengers. There'd be no reason why that could not continue the same 3-minute loading zone that could be 24/7 with the exception of the morning times. Again, on Orange, it's from 7 to noon.
How long does it take? How long does it take to unload a semi? I mean, let's say a semi parked there at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Depends how much stuff's in it.
No, I know. I would assume that it's a full,
It truly depends.
full truck. How long would it take? Would they be there 3-4 hours, or would
No,
they be
no.
there, an hour at the most, half an hour? What is it?
I would say from what we've seen, maybe a half an hour at the very most.
And how
for
many
the larger
trucks on a daily
vehicles.
basis would you say would be there?
I don't know how many on a daily basis, but I know that you can go by almost any morning and you'll see at least 2 or 3 trucks of various sizes. They can be anywhere from a small van up to an actual semi. There will be times when they will take up the entire frontage on there. So if there's an issue of wondering why they don't use this north-south alley, they will be using the north-south alley at times, because when that fills on Colorado, they'll have no other choice. And
I think
they'll have to
having it
use
a
that
drop-off
alley.
zone
They'll even
would be
use
good.
Caruso Avenue to the west side, or wherever they can get it. As Mr. Caruso said, it becomes an urban situation, and they'll make it work because it's their project, and they're the only traffic that's in there. It's theirs to deal with. Even though it's a
Can I
public
get a word
alley.
in edgewise now?
Sure.
Thanks. I think having a drop-off zone over there would be great as well, depending how long the trucks are going to be there. Because Crusoe Street is going to be pretty much blocked off, and you're going to have to come out of the alley to get out or turn around. So it would be better if people can drop off their kids, like I do, on Colorado and have them go through the Paseo. So I think that would be helpful. But I am concerned about the trucks, loading zone. I don't know if is the alley, would they be able to load and unload in the alley as Mr. Quintero's suggesting?
Well, they can do it. It's a fully improved, it's a 20-foot wide alley. And we would anticipate it being two-way. I mean, it's tight. That's the way you get into the condos on the corner. It'll be accommodating the valet parking of Nordstrom's. It can also accommodate valets that it normally would use Crusoe Avenue, but if they can't use that, then they can exit through there. So it'll be a busy time, but there's usually...
Mornings it'll be a busy time?
It will be from the loading standpoint, I think.
Mr. Crusoe?
I was just going to mention, we have the same exact condition at the Grove on 3rd Street behind Crate and Barrel. And I think to your suggestion to have a drop-off area makes sense. One of the things, in addition to loading for Crate and Barrel, we see a lot of people pulling up to bring packages and load up their car. So people pull up, especially during the holidays when there's more packages. So I think that makes sense. We have not encountered problems interfering with traffic at the Grove because the deliveries are happening early in the morning. So it's on an off-peak of traffic.
Okay, I don't want to belabor the point. I think it's problematic, but I will vote for it. I will approve it at this point.
Another question off that topic. On the eyebrows, at the lower end, you're going to have downlighting on that to give soft light along the wall? At night,
And I don't know that we've considered that yet, but I think that's an excellent idea, especially to highlight the landscaping, and got totally into
landscaping
our...
and some soft downlight there would
Yeah, I think
look good. The upper one, I doubt if it would.
right. I think that would
Help it all.
provide a nice feature to really highlight, and safety is a primary concern. So it would actually, be really important where we don't have the sconces
along
too, to
that
have
line.
that feature.
And the loading and unloading will be restricted 7 to 12. Not going to be any evening or late night.
Might be 5 in the morning.
You can set whatever time you wish. When the original
Or
project...
6 to 11, whatever.
Yeah, on brand, it's really, we've done it on a discussion with the particular merchants that use it. The ones on Central, for example, are from 6 to 11 in the morning, whereas the ones on Orange Street are 7 to noon. But it's basically that, a morning thing. I'm sure they would go along with either one of those, both the 3-minute for passengers and other times, and then the commercial loading.
Okay, well, I think it should definitely be restricted 7 to 12
Or 6 to 12.
or 6
Why
to...
not 5?
Well, are there any
Morning.
are there any businesses that load at night, late at night, or are they all in the morning?
Can we, can I request a divider on the south side of that loading zone so that the trucks don't interfere with, part of the trucks don't stick out, so they're clearly within the drop-off zone or the loading zone? Is that possible, or is it?
Well, physically it can, but not all trucks are going to be the big long ones. Sometimes there'll be those that are only 20 feet long, and otherwise you kind of come in like a wagon train, and we'd like to have it to where some can exit when they're finished rather than have to wait for the front guy to leave.
My concern is basically safety.
Right. We'll
I've
have
seen
11
many instances where trucks are parked in a loading area, and half of the truck is outside in the traffic lanes, and you have traffic backed up for miles, so especially in the mornings.
No, the point's well taken. That's why we've made it 11 feet wide instead of a normal parking lane that's 8 feet wide. The through travel lane will be 11 foot wide right next to it as well. So we'll put in a painted edge line that will give them the idea to get close. And if they are going to be unloading onto the sidewalk, they'll want to get as close
I'll tell you
to it as
this,
they can.
first time I see a truck sticking out of there, I'm going to request a divider.
You'd also put some special reflectors along there in the
Okay.
street.
You can also give tickets.
Yeah, that's
Right.
Give Mr. Mnuchin a book, tickets with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
You want motions yet, or
Yes,
do you want
please.
to comment? Okay, then you're closing the public hearing?
I already closed the public
Oh,
hearing.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'll move 1A. You want the introduction first or second? Okay, I'll do 1A first.
second.
Well, are we going to formalize the time?
I think we should.
I think we should.
6 to 12.
I wouldn't put a beginning time on. If they want to come at 5, what do we care?
I don't think that's appropriate to come at 5 in the morning. There's
Latest
condo
12.
owners, and I'd say, whatever, 7 to 12.
What if they come at 6 then?
I think the earlier is probably better for traffic.
Let's put the
6 to
limit
12.
at like 10 o'clock or something.
And have it loading and unloading for the rest of the day for community
Mr.
members.
Starbird?
Well, my suggestion is indicate you want some time limits to prevent congestion, and you ought to see what the operator needs and when the trucks are actually getting in there. You're going to just create a huge conflict. So why don't you direct
But what
staff?
I'm afraid of, Mr. Starbird, is that we're not going to get what we're talking about here, that it's going to be open season all day long.
Well,
Let's set a time and they can, I mean, it's not the end of the world, you know.
No, but here's my point, Mr. Quintero. If trucks are arriving at 6 o'clock in the morning, and that's when they arrive, I don't know. But if they do, don't set a 7 o'clock limit. So let's find out when they do arrive, set your limit. You don't want it extruding into the afternoon. It will be morning. But let's converse with the operators to make sure when you set it, it's not going to create a conflict automatically.
And can we just do that fact seeking and bring it back to the agency?
You certainly can.
Why don't we do it that way?
certainly can.
So that we
Just
don't
so
make
it
that
comes
decision.
back and we make a decision on what time is going to be allowed.
We will bring it back. Okay, so did you,
I made the motion at 1A.
okay, we have a motion and a second. We have 2 seconds. Can we have a roll call?
Council members Manukian?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Friedman?
Yes.
And I'll introduce the ordinance at 1B.
Okay, the ordinance is introduced. We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we are adjourned.
We are adjourned for redevelopment as well.
Okay, we have closed session now.
Wait, don't we have the redevelopment agency?
Yes, we do.
Do we have motions for the agency?
We didn't do it yet. We skipped that.
Oh, it's only the minutes. I'm
yes.
sorry, it's redevelopment agency. You're right.
I'll call to order is it 24th?
Okay, we're still in session, so we can have...
It'll only take a minute.
Okay.
Call to order Glendale Redevelopment Agency for October 25th, 2011. May we have a roll call for the redevelopment agency?
Agency members Friedman?
Here.
Najarian? Here. Quintero?
Here.
Weaver?
Here.
Chairman Manukian?
Here. Can we have your report?